Section 6.5, Applications, Word Problems. All right, so I'm on page 355, and I'm taking a look at number 12. Worldwide sales of Significant Other, which is by Limp Bizkit, have reached 6 million CDs and cassettes. The list price of the CD is $18.97, and the list price of the cassette is $12.98. If a store's total sales is 400 units and the revenue is $7,378.35, how many of each format was sold? Okay, so the hardest thing about word problems is organizing the information you're given and coming up with equations. But we're going to see that almost every one of these word problems works exactly the same. And hopefully you'll believe that by the time we're done. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is decide what we're looking for. And that's usually the last sentence in the problem. So the last sentence says, how many of each format was sold? Okay, so I'm looking for how many CDs and how many cassettes. So I'm looking for two different things. So I'm going to let X equal number of CDs, Y equal number of cassettes. If you're looking for two things, which we are in this case, you always need to have two equations. And so we got to go back through the word problem and look for our equations. Here's one of them. Total sales is 400 units. So X is really number of CDs sold, and Y is number of cassettes sold. So I own a store. I sold 400 units, which tells me if I take the number of CDs, total means add, the number of cassettes, I sold 400 units. So there's my first equation. And in these word problems, one of the equations is almost always going to look exactly like that. You're almost always going to have an X plus Y equals something. Almost always. In fact, just skimming through the problems in this section, I think you're always going to have that. I think that's going to happen in every problem. Okay, the other equation comes from revenue is that much. Now, how do I find revenue? Well, revenue is the amount of money people give me. So, if somebody buys one CD, they give me $18.97. But I'm selling a bunch of CDs, I'm selling X of them. So the revenue from CDs is $18.97X. There's how much money I take in for all the CDs. Similarly, I would have plus all the money I take in from cassettes. All the money I take in from cassettes is $12.98Y. You know, I just got to thinking, this problem must be pretty old. Who buys cassettes anymore? For that matter, how many CDs do you sell these days? Probably not a whole lot. Anyway, so what I have here is I have all the money I made on my CDs plus all the money I made on my tapes. That must be all the money I made. 7,378.35. So there's my two equations. And like I say, these problems are almost always going to work like that. You're going to have one equation, X plus Y equals something, and then you'll have a second equation which is more complicated. Now you need to solve. And you have three choices for solving. You can solve by substitution, you can solve by elimination, or you can solve by graphing. I don't recommend graphing. This one I think substitution or elimination are equally valid, pretty much equally easy. I guess I'm going to use substitution. I'm going to take this equation here, and I'm going to write Y equals 400 minus X. Get the Y all by itself. Take that. Plug it in right there. So I end up with 18.97X plus 12.98 times 400 minus X equals 7378.35. Lots of decimals. Decimals don't scare me, though, because I have a calculator. My calculator is very good with decimals. 1897X plus 1298 times 400. is 5192 minus 12.98x equals 7378.35. Put my x's together, 18.97 minus 12.98, that's 599. So 5.99x plus 5192 is 7378.35. Subtract the 5192, I'm going to have 5.99x is 7378.35 minus 5192. Oops, screw that up. Let me try it again. 7378.35 minus 5192. There we go. I get 2186.35. Divide by 599. And I get 365 CDs. So we sold 365 CDs. I would take that, plug it in right there. So Y is 400 minus 365 is 35 cassettes. All right, let's try another one. Number 18. An 8,000-seat amphitheater will sell tickets for $30 and $55 for a garbage concert. Let X and Y be the number of tickets that will sell for $30 and $55 respectively. Assume the show will sell out. Question A. Let R of X be the total revenue function. Find an equation for R of X. All right, well, revenue, again, revenue is the money people give me. So I'm selling some $30 tickets. If I sell one $30 ticket, I get $30. Two $30 tickets, $60. X $30 tickets, I get 30X dollars. Plus, I sell some $55 tickets, and again, I get $55 for every ticket, and I'm selling a Y of them. So 30X plus 55Y, that's my revenue function. Now, that's not quite the answer they wanted, though. Notice the symbol they wrote, R of X. That means they want revenue, and they only want the letter X in it. They don't want the letter Y. We need to do something to get rid of that letter Y. Well, the thing we need to do, remember I told you back in the previous problem, if you have two variables, you really need two equations. Right now, we only have one equation. We need a second equation. Here's our second equation. Kind of funny, there's no numbers in it at all. This is our equation, though. Assume the show will sell out. What does it mean to sell out? It means we sell all the seats. So we sold that many seats for $30, and we sold that many seats for $55, and altogether we sold 8,000 seats. So remember what I told you in the previous example. That's almost always going to happen. You're almost always going to have X plus Y equals something. So we look for that equation. Okay, so now I see what I need to do to get rid of this Y right here in this equation. I'm going to take this equation over here, and I'm going to get Y all by itself, and I'm going to plug it in right there, and then I will have my R of X. So R of X, R with only the letter X in it, is 30X plus 55 times 8,000 minus X. And I think I'll simplify that. That's 30X plus 55 times 8,000 is 440,000 minus 55X. 30X minus 55X is minus 25X. So here's my final answer for my R of X formula. R of X is minus 25X plus 440,000. Part B asks, what is the slope? And what does it mean? Well, from looking at my equation, my slope is minus 25. That's the coefficient of X. What does that mean? Well, let's see. Remember that our Y values here are revenue, and my X values are number of $30 tickets sold. So what this tells me is for each $30 ticket sold, revenue drops, because it's minus slope, by $25. Well, that makes sense, because if I sell a $30 ticket, it means I didn't sell a $55 ticket. If I could sell the $55 ticket, I'd make $25 more, right? 55 minus 30 is 25. So conversely, if I sell one extra $30 ticket, then I lost potentially $25 that I could have had by selling it as a $55 ticket. All right, part C asks, evaluate R at 6,500. And what does it mean? Well, R at 6,500, and evaluating it's easy enough, minus 25 times 6,500 plus 440,000. I use my calculator, minus 25 times 6,500 plus 440,000. I get 277,500, 277,500, and that would be dollars. What does that mean? Well, I took X for 6,500. X is number of tickets sold at $30. So what this tells me is if I sell 6,500 $30 tickets, revenue is $277,500. Or I could also point out that if I sell 6,500 $30 tickets, it means I only sell 1,500 tickets at $55. All right, part D, last part here. How many of each ticket must be sold for revenue to be $250,000? So this time they're telling us the revenue is $250,000. How many of each ticket? So we're trying to find X, and we're trying to find Y. Well, I got my formula for revenue, so I'm just going to plug in 250,000, I guess. So I would have 250,000 equals, my formula for revenue is minus 25X plus 400, left a zero off there, 440,000. So minus 25X is 250,000 minus 440,000 is negative 190,000. X is, divide that by negative 25, I get 7,600. So that means I sell 7,600 at $30, which means I only have 400 left at $55 because I only had $8,000 altogether. All right, last problem. Number 49. How many gallons of a 10% antifreeze solution and a 25% antifreeze solution need to be mixed to make 3 gallons of a 20% solution? Okay, again, we need to start with what we're looking for, X and Y. We're looking for how many gallons. So X equals number of gallons of the 10%, and Y will be the number of gallons of the 25%. Okay, now, again, I told you that in these problems, you're almost always going to have that X plus Y equals what? Equals something. Well, what are we doing? When we get all done, we're going to have some gallons and some gallons, and when we get all done, we want a total of 3 gallons. So X gallons plus Y gallons should equal 3 gallons. And then we need to come up with a 20% solution. So if I take 0.10x That gives me the amount of antifreeze in the 10% solution plus 0.25y. There's the amount of antifreeze in the 25% solution. And when I get all done, I want 3 gallons at 20%. So there's my second equation. Okay, so very, very similar to the previous problems we did. You have an x plus y equals something, and then you use the other information to come up with your second equation. This time I think I'll solve by elimination. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to take this first equation, and I'm going to multiply by minus 0.10. I'll make my x's cancel out. So I'll have minus 0.10x minus 0.10y equals minus 0.3. Oops. Yeah, that's right. Minus 0.10x minus 0.10y. And then I'll have 0.10x plus 0.25y equals 3 times 0.2 is 0.6. Add them up. X's go away. 0.15y equals 0.3. So y is 0.3 divided by 0.15 is 2 gallons. So I need 2 gallons at, that was, which one? That was the 25% solution, which means X is, well, X would only be 1 gallon left. 1 gallon at 10%. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good basis of how these word problems are going to work. The only way to get better at word problems is to try them. You have to practice. You're not going to get better just by watching me do them. You really need to sit down and try these on your own and figure them out.